Hello, hello. Welcome to Book Club. We're going to be going over chapter 2.7 today, and that is the science of healthy eating and weight loss. And my little note in the book says how fat burn happens. Definitely one of my favorite chapters. So let's go ahead and open it up and let's hear some of your takeaways from 2.7.
Can I say?
Go ahead, Misty.
I was just gonna say, wow. Like, I'm trying to turn lights on and stuff here. So many things that explain everything, really. I mean, I didn't get through the whole entire thing, but I am very, very, very happy on this one. That is for sure. Just right out of the gate, some of the explanations of it kind of goes through some of the things that we heard previously or that we read previously, but again, we talked about that last week about how, it's cool that he talks about a lot of things again. He brings them up so that we're kind of ingraining them without really having to go back and reread the other sections in some sense, but going over the core principles again and why it's important to have a balanced plate. And the 3 to 5 hours to absorb, though, that was way cool. Like how your body is actually absorbing everything. I thought that was really an eye-opener. Like, I mean, I knew it took a while for your body to process things, but, oftentimes we say, especially with like bars, if you're really bar heavy, it just takes a little bit of time for your body to process it. So this kind of, I don't know, to me made it like understandable.
Great visuals in here. I liked the breakdowns. I've been highlighting, I don't know if I can show this, but my book is heavily highlighted all the way through. So lots of notes in here. And the graphics and just the carbs and the fats and the protein, breaking down how we're using it and what we're using and why. It's a good reminder for me. Some of this I've heard before, but it really breaks it down in a way that kind of brings it fresh to my mind.
And let's not forget that red wine was mentioned.
Yes.
I think he prefaces it, though, when you're not on 5 and 1, we incorporate it back in.
This is true. I made note of that. But I got to look at it in the book. It says alcohol.
It's amazing to me that we haven't already, well, most of us don't already know about this. Like I look back at school and I'm like, I know I took health classes. I know I took, different courses on wellness and whatnot. And I never learned any of that stuff about insulin. I mean, I thought insulin literally was like something that diabetics had to deal with and had no impact on me. So this is just really eye-opening to understand how that works and kind of why the 5 and 1 helps us control that, and why all the things that we do, or some of us did before plan, with these really super high carb loads and sugar, over sugared things that we were eating, were affecting us all day and really setting us up to store in fat rather than being able to burn fat, even if we were working out, which for the record I wasn't. But it's really interesting. I think this would be a great chapter for anyone to read, even if they're not on plan. Like just understanding carbs, protein, and what was the other one? Alcohol, and there was fats. Like how that all kind of plays into it. I'm forgetting fats because I guess fats don't really affect insulin that much. But yeah, I mean, I really like this one. Good science.
It's funny now because when I look at things like my boss brought in donuts again, all of the bad things that they bring in. And I literally looked at it and I was like, yeah, I don't want my insulin pumps to turn on. Like that's where my brain went. So understanding what sugars do to you and the food that you take in. Yeah, super big one on this one.
I liked right at the beginning, and not only as a client of the program, but as a coach of the program, when we're explaining different things and just being able to talk about the benefits of the 3-hour fuelings, right? Like how he gets in here, I just highlighted it. It was turns off the insulin pump, keeps the energy level, helps us avoid the wide glucose, blood sugar hikes, and it reduces the chances that we'll overeat, which is true when we starve ourselves. I mean, I hear this over and over again from folks. It's like, oh yeah, I don't eat all day, and then I just eat 20 pounds of food when I get home, because they're famished and they're ravenous. And it definitely makes, well, of course, and adding water in there as well, keeping you full throughout the day, but it keeps things on the wraps where you're not overeating, because of the way we eat, and why we'll maintain that even after we're in transition and maintenance.
The importance of protein for keeping us from from having our body kind of break down our muscles during weight loss. That was a big thing, because I think a lot of folks out there, including me, when I came on, really thought that if you were trying to lose weight by reducing calories, then you were kind of resigned to, you were going to be slipping on the muscle side, kind of like no matter what, you're going to be losing muscle while you're losing weight. So it's nice to kind of understand why that's not the case here, because we're getting all this protein every time that we have a fueling, which just, I mean, before I had fuelings, that wasn't the way it worked for me. I would, even if I was eating 6 times a day, which I wasn't, but even if I had been doing that kind of thing, so a lot of those things where I'm eating wouldn't be high enough in protein. So you're actually kind of double whammy. You're eating something that's high in carbs and fats, you're gaining weight from that, and if you do have a caloric deficit, then you're actually burning up muscle while gaining fat, which is really neat trick if you want to be obese and not have good muscle tone.
I like how he talks about the fat of fasting, because I feel like it's really relevant right now. I feel like a lot of people I talk to are doing fasting, and they think like they're doing the 8 hours of eating and they can eat whatever they want, and then they don't eat for 12 hours, right? Or whatever the actual mathematical
Right.
is. And I like how he says that our bodies naturally, what fasting does, our bodies naturally will do that if we're actually eating properly and eating the correct portions. It's like that needs to be posted in these people's faces that, yeah, you're losing the weight, right? But it's not necessarily the way your body is meant to be losing it. It's not the healthy way. It's not sustainable. You're not teaching your body how to actually do that naturally every single day.
Yeah. A lot of these folks that do the fasting, I I just feel like they go overboard when it's time to eat anyway. It's like, oh, well, I would have eaten all these terrible things throughout the day, and now it's somehow better because I save it all up and do it at once. It's like, even if you are getting your body into ketosis and you're losing weight, because it's effective, you can't deny that as with many things, it's kind of work for losing weight. But what are you doing to your insulin response? What are you doing to your cholesterol levels and different things when you're I just don't even understand the thinking. How is it that eating a bunch of unhealthy food but going 12 hours without eating any is somehow better? I don't get it.
I agree. I don't either. And I couldn't do it.
Right?
It's
I
not
hate being
teaching,
hungry.
it's not
I would
teaching a
get
long-term
started.
healthy habit. Like they're not learning to eat healthy foods. So
Yeah.
when they're done with that program per se, and they go back to eating all day, they haven't learned to eat the right foods and the right quantity. And
It's like a gimmick.
yeah,
That's the way I kind of felt. Not to poo-poo it, because I know a lot of people do well on keto, but that was kind of how I felt after, especially when I learned about this. We started digging in, like you look at a lot of programs, and again, not to poo-poo them, but it's like, what are you learning? Because otherwise it's just the gimmick, and it really is a diet, and you really will go back to all those other things you used to do. And I would have never even thought that way had I not been reading these books. Another one in here, which I've actually kept in mind for myself, but I've shared this with clients, is talking about how, well, here's one of them. There was whatever research was done that when you eat food with fewer flavors, you'll feel fuller sooner. I would have never thought that, but it's pretty interesting. Maybe there's something, I haven't read the study, but that's definitely interesting to hear as you cook, right? And then the other one was battling hunger, and how, I know did someone already, I think someone might have already this, but protein makes you feel or fuller. And so I do remember, I think, reading something from possibly from client support, nutrition support, about how if you are going to go past the 5 fuelings and you're lean and green, to just eat a little bit of protein, because it'll make, well, because there's no carbs in it. But I'm seeing in here, like, that would be a better option too, because that would make you feel fuller if you're going to add any more, right? So we can eliminate that feeling.
Speaking of feeling fuller, the whole bit about volumetrics was really neat. In one of the sidebars on page 300, and they were comparing, let's see, what was it? An 8-ounce bag of potato chips, which weighs 100 grams and contains over 500 calories, versus 1,000 grams of broccoli, which is 2.2 pounds of broccoli and has 340 calories. So the weight is 10 times greater, and the energy density and volumetrics are powerful allies in helping us curb our hunger. So that's interesting. Not that, it takes a habit. I mean, we can say that, eating broccoli versus chips, and people who are eating terribly are like, well, that's not going to do it. That's not going to satisfy me. But that is just a myth. As long as we develop a habit, then you will enjoy those things just as much.
It's
So
the
it's really
association.
cool.
I think it's the association between the food, though. Like, they're not thinking, going and, I mean, it's more of the addiction qualities that step into play with the bag of chips versus, a big plate full of broccoli.
Right.
Like, are you absolutely going to get full? There's no way in heck that I'm going to eat 2.2 pounds of broccoli for 340 calories. I mean, it's just not happening, and so that again goes back to that education part too. It's like, you realize what you're doing. Do you understand any of this? We don't. I think it's our jobs now as health coaches, especially when we're doing health assessments and stuff like that, to bring some of these things to light. I mean, and I'm like referencing all kinds of things in here when I'm doing health assessments now. It's like, oh, hang on a second. Do you know, after at the end of it all, this does FYI things, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I also marked in here, and diabetes is really big in my household because my husband has type 1. So these are really good informative things for me to have. But I thought this was kind of crazy, where he says, in fact, over 7 million Americans right now have diabetes and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then like the how, like, unfortunately, we go about consuming our supersized meals in bliss. The damage begins without us noticing. Deep inside, high insulin levels are creating a state of inflammation, decreasing the flexibility of our blood vessels and causing the premature aging of our cells. The warning signs are poor sleep, low energy, headaches, thirst, cravings, and hunger. I mean, we're already poisoning ourselves, right? I mean, we didn't even realize you know, and I think a lot of people don't understand this part and don't even know.
So many habits of unhealth out there. It's just, this is why all through our program, habits, 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 like all the time. I mean, the potato chips versus the broccoli. It's a habit. Your parents made you eat your vegetables and you learned to hate them, you know, and they always made them the same way because their parents didn't teach them. It was like boiled vegetables. They're not enjoyable. At least when I was growing up, there wasn't many vegetable dishes I liked unless it was topped with cheese and Ritz crackers and baked. But man, it's just how I love this chapter for just opening people's eyes to that and trying to teach folks all the rewards from eating well, which we just don't understand. Everyone thinks that eating well is going to be torture if they're used to eating terrible. And all they're thinking about is their taste bud response to what they're eating. They're not thinking about all the benefits. I had another client this week just it was a celebration call with one of my coaches, and she said, yeah, you know, my coach told me I was going to feel better by the end of the week, and honestly I thought he was blowing smoke, and I just can't believe like how much better I feel after a week. So yes, these are the things that folks do not understand. This chapter is really
You can
good at
tell them all day
highlighting that.
long, but you can tell people things all day long, but they don't really get it until they do it and they try.
Yeah.
And when you are in a habit of eating those things, it's a difficult choice. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody likes their junk food.
Yep.
I miss mine, but I know it's not good for me. So, who else was interested in the energy density part? I didn't even know that was a thing. I'd never even heard of that before. But the fact that it's on already on food labels in Europe and Canada and other countries, but we don't have it on ours here.
Oh, I didn't know that. I missed that bit. Yeah, it's really.
It's on page 304 and
Mhm.
305.
Yeah, I saw the section. I didn't realize about the food labels, though. That's really neat. So much more information we could put out there.
Why don't they put it on our labels? That'd be interesting.
There's a ton of things that the United States doesn't do or that does do that other countries forbid.
Yeah, there's a lot of products. There's a lot of products that are banned or ingredients that are banned in other countries that we continue to use in our food products.
I wonder why that is. I've mentioned this before. If you guys ever get a chance to watch the documentary, The Poison Squad, it talks about how, well, it was just basically this one guy who was fighting to keep some of the nonsense out of our foods that the government allowed to be okay. Basically, it was why the USDA was created. Not USDA, the whatever the other one is that makes sure that our food's all
FDA?
FDA, yeah, maybe that's it. That's why it was created, because of this guy, and he literally, like for years, was fighting against it, and because they were putting in embalming fluid and stuff like that into our, just to keep it shelf stable, and people were consuming that and getting ill.
Yeah, I think it's all about money.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, we just need to keep fighting for that, I guess. The other one in here that this is a reoccurring theme where people say, but I'm hungry. I'm still hungry. I do
Yeah,
this. I still say these things even though I know better. I literally know better. It's that unconscious thing that creeps in my brain, where, or rather not really thinking about, just wanting to go back to old habits. And the reason I bring that up is because it talks about, and I just had it here, it talks about drinking water, and where a lot of people mistake, and he said this before, but I love hearing it again, about how we mistake hunger for thirsty sometimes. And he didn't say it in here, but I know this to be true. We mistake hunger for cravings a lot of the times. And I literally just talked to a client this week, and he's like, but I'm hungry. I go, okay, well, I don't take this the wrong way, but are you really hungry? Like, really, are you hungry? Is your stomach growling? Are you hungry? No, it's probably a craving. Because you start to make them think about it. It's most of the time we're not. We're really not. But those other demons jump into our head and mistake the hunger for other things.
Well, I have one client, it's been like that for months. He is always still hungry.
Hmm.
And it's, but he also really struggles with not, using the correct portions and then adding extra stuff that he's not supposed to be. It's like, if you follow, the actual program and you get into Fatburn, you're not going to be hungry, and you're going to be able to trick your hunger by having that extra water before a fueling and after a fueling and feeling full. But it's like, people have to believe in the system to work the system to know that it's actually working, and a lot of people just want to resort back to their old habits of, well, I'm hungry, so I'm going to grab that bag of chips and I'm
Justify.
going to eat that, right? And it's going to make me feel full now.
Absolutely.
When it really doesn't make you feel full. You just tricked your brain.
I like that.
Go ahead, Misty.
Oh. I was just going to say, I like that Dr. A points out, like, in the previous section, Haley, about how, like, if you are having that, then go for another fueling, add an additional fueling, go for something that's not going to turn on your insulin pump, and that you're going to stay within those low glycemic levels of your day. So, and I've struggled. I think we all struggle with that, and especially if we're not realizing, maybe what we've been doing prior and how much energy we're exerting, and all those little things that can cause, your mind or your body to kind of fluctuate. So I've been going for the extra brownie personally, just saying.
Well, it's really a good test too on, we talk about hunger and recognizing hunger. Like the test it, like, okay, I was just so hungry, you don't understand. I'm a big guy. I have a long day. I had to do a lot today, so I was super hungry. And so what? That's how you ended up having crackers from the vending machine. Like, forget that. Like, if you're actually hungry, you're physically hungry, then give your body something to deal with the hunger instead of satisfying what's really going on, which is a psychological craving for something you, quote, can't have. Because if you're super hungry, have some broccoli. We already discussed that. You can have like 2 pounds of broccoli. It's all yours. And I try to hit on that with clients. It's like, okay, I understand you were super hungry. I'm not going to deny that. I hope you're working on understanding the difference between hunger and cravings. But don't feed your hunger with that sandwich from the sub shop. Feed your hunger with something approved, and quite honestly, on purpose, maybe not your favorite thing, because you probably don't need it anyway. Just unseasoned shrimp. There you go. A can of unseasoned tuna and water. You've got yourself some protein. Have some lettuce. Have some broccoli. Like, if you are so starving, those things will address that. But they don't want that, because, then that kind of forces you to deal with yourself on, like, yeah, maybe it's not so much that I'm hungry as it is I wanted that Jimmy John sub. Not that, I don't know why I got so specific there. Certainly I would never eat a Jimmy John sub.
You can have
something else that I think we don't think about is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can have Jimmy John's unwich.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
Something else we don't think about too is we're not necessarily hunger, but something that I experienced this week was it's almost boredom. Like, we are so used to putting our hand to our face and feeding ourselves. Like when we go to a movie, not eating popcorn or not having some, because you're just used to that habit of constantly putting something in your mouth. There was a family birthday get together at a restaurant. Well, I ate ahead of time. But the whole time I was sitting there, it wasn't that I was hungry. I wasn't hungry at all. I knew I was not hungry. But I didn't know what to do with my hands, because I was so used to, plate to mouth, the whole time. And it was strictly just boredom and habit, other than hunger, not hunger.
Kudos to you for recognizing that. Because that's really hard sometimes. Even when you know what you just say, like, I know that's going to happen. Boy, we forget. I can forget. I'm not going to say we. I can forget that very quickly in the same situation where I'm not rationally thinking about it. I'm not using my thinking brain. I'm using something else, right? Like I'm just, it's FOMO. It's maybe a little bit of addiction. We associate community to food. Thanksgiving's come out. What a perfect example of what we do on those days. But it's like birthdays, and any reason we get together with anybody else, it's really around food. Doctor even talks about it. I still remember early on in program where I'd be home by myself, kids would be at school, Cindy be at Kaiser, and it wouldn't be my fueling time, and my brain would be telling me all the things like, oh, it's time to have something, and I would literally have to get out of the house and just go walk. And so I'd walk, several times during the week, because just to get my mind off of what I wasn't even hungry, but it was just to get the mind off it. I had to get away from the house too, because that's where all the food was. So, but it's true. He even says it in page 308, stress, socializing, watching TV, eating out with friends, all contribute to mindless eating. Top of page 308. And it's true. We've been doing it for 34 years, right? Or whatever, however old we are. We've been doing that. That is a habit that is ingrained. That's a tough one to break, at least the mindset of it.
I just chose to hold the baby the whole time.
Hey,
There you go.
we need a baby.
That kept
No, we
me,
don't. We
that,
do not
that
need a
keeps me
baby.
busy.
I love it. No, that's perfect. Good for you, Ashley. That's huge. That is really huge that you were so conscious about it.
Yeah, well, restaurants are a huge challenge because we're on the road so much.
Mm.
And Victor loves, my husband, he loves going out to eat. He loves fine dining. And I have just gotten where I have to, no, I don't want to go. Or I'll go with you, but I'm just not going to eat. I'll sit in front of you, which is even twice as hard. I'll sit with you and we'll chat and you can eat, but it smells so good. It's really hard not to just take one little bite of whatever it is. And then once you've taken a bite, you can forget it because it's all downhill from there.
Has that changed your husband's habits at all by you saying, I'll go, but I'm not going to eat?
He does make healthier choices, but he doesn't stick to plan 100%. He's much better, but he uses I'm a man, I'm bigger than you, I need more. I want to have a drink.
Mm.
Tell him you know a couple of men, and that's not true. Other men, I mean.
Yeah.
People tell me this all the time, and I'm like, hey, like, come on now. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. The first day I started planning, I held my fuelings in my hand. I wanted to cry, and I was nearly 300 pounds, and I just thought I was going to starve myself to death. But man, that's that hard part, like going all in when you're on plan, because people dabble all the time. And I think it's really very common with us guys. Well, I shouldn't say that. It could be anybody, but a lot of men that I know, we justify it. Like, oh, I have this, all of a sudden we're nutrition scientists. Like, I spend a lot of energy. I have more muscle and my muscles need to be fed, or I have a more labor intensive job, therefore I need more. And it's like, nope, you really don't. I always think of our friend Jose.
That's the only person I ever bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, and this guy started out probably closer to 450 than anything, and he did 5-in-1, and he had egg whites and approved 5-in-1 dinners, as far as I know, probably just about perfectly for a full year, and the guy lost 100 pounds in a year. So
no, he lost 190 pounds in a year.
you're right. 196 pounds. I can always get it's just unbelievable. I can't even fathom it.
We both started in January of 2018. I lost 90 pounds, and I had taken 2 months off, and the same time that he lost 190 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
We were roommates together that you were there. So yeah, in October and November of 2018. Yeah. And so there will be some folks that say, well, I'm bigger, I'm taller, I need more. I pull out that Jose Diaz story and say, no, actually, I got a buddy here who was losing 20 pounds a week on 5-in-1.
You can use a man's ego and our stubbornness against us too. Like, here's one of my tips on that front: dare him, challenge him. Like, You couldn't even do it. You can't even do 5 and 1 exactly right for 2 weeks. Just like, I mean, whatever, rib them a little bit, because once you trick us into doing that, and we see how actually amazing we feel for the second half of that 2-week challenge, it's like, oh, not that our cravings will go away forever by any means, but then we have a source of inspiration. And I have to remind myself, like when I'm struggling, I'm like, like I love to eat the bad things, but I can now draw back and remember, oh yeah, I remember how amazing I felt during that time of when I was eating right, and I can lean on that to get back to it.
Y'all look what
Gosh.
he just walked in the house and sit on the table in front of me.
Was that?
Yes.
What is it?
Sick.
Whataburger. He will eat a chicken biscuit every single day if he could.
That's Whataburger's over there in Texas now. You should.
Yes.
Yep.
They're big in the
Oh,
South.
I used
Yeah.
to stop at Hardee's every single morning on the way to work. Get me a chicken
Whataburger's
biscuit. Mhm.
Yeah. It's literally on the main road, pretty much across the street from my house.
Whataburger's
Yeah.
Texas.
Whataburger, Chick-fil-A, Bronze, all of it.
And it's designed to make us want it. The
Well,
packaging, the
it's sitting on
color,
my
the
kitchen
smell,
table. It's hard
everything.
not to want it.
Of course.
You
But I'm
smell it.
saying when it was purchased, when I'm riding down the road and I see that Hardee's or whatever it is, I mean, I have a Pavlov dog response. I'm salivating. I almost unconsciously want to pull into those places. To me, that's what helped me get over that, because I'm like, this is an addiction. I already beat cigarettes. I already beat alcohol. Like,
True.
this is an addiction that's been hiding under my face the whole time. But it's tough.
I almost forget they used to smoke, Eric.
Yeah.
We don't ever talk
I
about
did as well.
it. Did you actually? When did you quit?
26 years ago.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Former smoker here too. Yeah.
Still want one occasionally, but
I like the smell of them, but I will never. It's it's like you talk about that Pavlov thing, Eric. I love the smell of them. I could sit in a
Oh
room,
gosh.
but I could never put it to my mouth because the way your taste buds change when you stop.
yeah.
Well,
This-
everybody has a different cue and reward. That's what's interesting. I can't stand the smell of cigarette. And one of my big cues used to be if I'd see it on a movie or I saw someone doing it, that would make me crave it. But all of those cues, for whatever reason, they don't really hit me anymore. Now it's
It's
more of
also
a
an-
desire. Like, I want to have it in my hand. I want the pack and all the things that I do with my hands, like Ashley was talking about.
Yeah, it's another one of those hand to mouth things.
Hmm.
It's true.
I
Yeah.
think the availability to just walk out for a minute, like that was my excuse all the
Yeah.
time. Was just, I
What a
needed
shocker to find out you could do that without a cigarette, right?
Oh, who knew? It's like, okay, if I do that, what am I gonna do? I don't have a cigarette, so then you have to find things to do. But yeah, that's been my biggest, and I still like it's been fairly. I stopped fully. I think 2 years. It was right before program,
Hmm.
and I think that probably is still one of the biggest things that I want and miss the most is just stepping out for a few minutes just to
Well, when I was quitting, I actually kept that aspect because I knew that was what was important to me. And I carried around a little, I don't have it anymore. I don't need the crutches, but I had a little container that had toothpicks in it.
oh, yeah.
And when I got a craving for a cigarette, I walked outside and I opened my nice little container and I pulled one out. Sometimes I'd tap it on my hand like a silly guy. I'd put it in my mouth and I'd walk around and I'd just breathe like I was smoking for about 5 minutes. And it's like, I can do that.
That's
And
smart.
I just stopped saying a cigarette break and I just started saying a break. And pretty soon I really didn't even need the break.
How can we apply that to? Because now I'm kind of my wheels are turning here. I
Right?
know that worked there because I quit smoking in a similar way. 'Cause I used the vaping before it became a really popular thing. That's kind of it was still getting the fixation of it, a flavor, inhaling these things. how can we do that with food addiction?
Well, it's the replacing with the lower GI food and using the water. And just what I was just talking about with the protein and the lies we tell ourselves about how hungry we are. I mean, it makes me laugh, honestly. And this is not, it's just, why did you stop at Wendy's and get a double burger? Oh, because I was super hungry today. It's like, okay. I mean, you couldn't get a salad. I mean,
No, that's
it's
true. That's true. Yeah, good
it's
point.
you could make a better choice. The toothpick was just a
I was thinking,
replacement
yeah, I
because
was
you
thinking
can't fight the habit. You can't. I tell clients all the time, I'm like, if I sit here and try to tell you to not love what you love, it will never work. There's no amount of it. I cannot convince you that you don't like the taste of a Whataburger. But what you've got to figure out is, what can I get by with? I have to recognize on a logical level that's not a great thing for me. And then I have to figure out replacements that will work to get me by. And at first, it's going to be unsatisfying. I mean, when I first started replacing cigarettes with toothpicks, I was pissed at the world. It was not a good replacement, but it just was enough to get me by with that craving. And I of course, didn't have the cigarettes handy. I wrote something one time and it was like, I would reach for my pocket where my cigarettes would be, but if they weren't there, then I wouldn't have one. That's why Dr. A is always talking about surroundings, right? So we're picking on Ashley's husband now, poor guy. All he did was
Oh,
come in with breakfast. But it's like, drive around, make your route not by the Whataburger. I mean, you can't resist the cue. You have to have a period of time where you're developing a new habit. And for
He
me,
probably had a fueling before he went and got the biscuit as well.
yeah,
No, I think you're right, Eric. Those are some of the things where you're right. Healthy. That's what I was thinking of before you said it. Is out of sight, out of mind. If you're low at willpower, don't keep it in the house. Drive a different route if that's your trigger. And by the way, you guys call it Hardee's over there. We call it Carl's Jr. over here in America. It's but yeah, I think that's true, especially if you're highly susceptible to whatever thing it is. I honestly didn't really even think about it in that way. I'm glad we're talking about it.
well, and the other piece of it is rewarding yourself. And I mean, I don't think I get more of an eye roll type of response from people that I talk to and myself. If I were to go back in time and try to talk to myself about that too, is reward yourself. And people are like, what are you saying? What, oh, I get a participation trophy or I get a gold star. Like, no, I'm saying if you decided, oops, I'm heading home, Whataburger's on the way, and I'm going to drive around out of my way 5 minutes because I don't even want to go buy it. Well, you got to congratulate yourself with the things that make everybody's different. For me, it'd be like, you're strong, man. Like that was manly. That was awesome. You decided early, you went around, you didn't cave to that thing. You had a toothpick instead of a cigarette. Like that's why we reward ourselves, because the habit itself, the addiction rather, does reward us right up in here. It's automatic. We don't need a gold star. It's boom, endorphins in our head, taste on our mouth. So we have to replace that. We have to create our own reward system. And I think a lot of people think that that's silly. And it's like, no, if it's silly, it's just because you haven't figured out the right reward. Figure out the right reward for yourself and make it real and make it something that you crave. And that 5 and 1, I crave being in Fatburn. That's the only way. And I pat myself on the back when I drive by Hardee's because I want to go. And I tell myself after the fact, like, yeah, that's right. Made it past. Oh, there's a McDonald's up ahead. But like reward myself. Like, I feel good about that. That was a good thing. And then how you feel more on the longer term gratitude, the longer term effects, you want to start craving that because gosh, I want a Hardee's chicken biscuit right now, but I don't want it as bad as I just want to feel better.
See though, Andrew, in that we don't talk good to ourselves, and I think that if we can create that addiction and that endorphin release of being like, you know what, I totally rocked that. being proud of yourself is okay. And especially when you make these huge changes like this, or these wins, these little wins. And going through with like Atomic Habits, where he says that your habits are created because you had a need to fulfill, right? So figuring out a different way to fulfill that need to get that woohoo, that reward at the end.
Yeah.
Just breaking it down a little bit and figuring out outside of the box versus what you normally would always continue to do. But I think a lot of it is, it's okay to be proud of yourself. And we have this feeling like we can't be. Like, why can't that be your reward? Be like, heck yeah, I totally did this. I'm totally cool. I rocked it. You're the
I think
only
that's I think that's a very good point. We're really quick to congratulate other people, but I don't think we do enough positive self-talk.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
And what is hard to see on the other side is, when we talk about, oh, well, you're going for this addiction and you're satisfying this craving, but you could feel better about healthy habits. To me, that was another one of the things early on where I was just like, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna want cauliflower pizza the way I want regular pizza or whatever. But whatever you do, whatever habit you establish becomes a loop. Like, I desire and love to go bike riding right now. I mean, it is like, if I just want to hang up this phone and go get on my bike right now, like, it is a reward that I seek. 2.5 years ago, it would have been the hugest chore. If you told me you'd pay me $100 to go ride my bike for the next 2 hours, I'd be like, that's not going to happen. So repetition, habits, again, that's why we always talk about habits of health. I mean, you can create anything. And that's the one thing I hope anybody who watches us and listens in on these things is, you can create any habit you want. Even if you think it's silly, even if you don't think you would ever crave whatever this healthy habit is, I promise you, if you could do it for 90 days or so, you'll start craving it. Do push-ups every day, make it a habit. And you think it's a chore for the first 2 weeks, by the end of 90 days, you won't feel right if you don't do your push-ups. Or drive by the Whataburger, not stop.
Mine was Arby's. Not Whataburger.
Right. We
What
don't
do
even have
people-
Whataburgers down here.
What do people think of the fact that we burn most of our fat when we're sleeping? Is that interesting to anybody?
Yes.
I did think that was cool. It's like we're doing our own little fasting. I never really thought of it that way. It basically said when you wake up, you're in a fat burning state. So having a low glycemic breakfast and fueling right, like, you just keep that going. So that might be something to talk to folks who are like fasting. It's like, yeah, well, we do fast 8 hours a night. We just keep it rolling. If you get up and have, oh gosh, we're just killing the Whataburger today. If you get up and have a Whataburger, you completely just cut off your fat burning that you had earned in your sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good reminder of the importance of sleep too, right? Because there's so many people that are like, how many hours of sleep do you get? I don't know, maybe 4, 5 on a good day. And we're like, whoa, those are probably extra hours that they're not getting that they could be in fat burn if they just put their bodies in a rested state.
Right? Well, it's not in this chapter, but I remember learning about the other cool thing about sleep is that as our body is in fat burn and all this, I don't know the chemistry, but it's basically a reaction that's going on. We're converting fat to glucose, and then you've got the byproducts of that. So one of the primary ways fat byproducts leave our body is through exhalations while we're sleeping.
That was in that TED Talk, right? Where, yeah, he had mentioned that. Yeah.
I think I've heard it in some of our materials somewhere as well.
If you do,
but I forget where.
Bring it up, share it with me again, because I'm definitely
sure
want to revisit that as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I don't know how people function on 4 and 5 hours sleep. Like, I'm very ill if I don't get my full 9 hours.
Amen.
And don't wake me up.
It's amazing what
It's
people
doable.
not only put up with, but totally get hooked to. And I had a person telling me recently, we were talking about caffeine, and I was like, oh, yeah, let's try to limit your caffeine after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the person was like, oh, no. I mean, I drink coffee at night, and my husband and I both do. It doesn't affect our sleep. Like, we're able to go to sleep. And I remember my grandparents used to do that. And it's like there's a difference between not affecting your ability to go to sleep and affecting the quality of your sleep. And you're just not even aware of how much lighter you're sleeping because you had that caffeine in the late afternoon.
Yeah, and that happens where it's not deep sleep, and then also
Mhm.
folks that I know that I've talked to sleep 4 or 5 hours. They're also napping during the day. So it's like you probably, if you just got that full rest, you probably wouldn't need to nap. You'd probably have a lot more energy.
Well, let's see what else. We kind of went all over. It's a good discussion. I get started on addiction, guys. I can't stop. I think it's not everybody's problem, but it's my problem, and it's a lot of clients' problem, I think.
Yeah, you don't even realize.
What else did we miss? We didn't really touch on the visceral adiposity. I'm maybe saying that wrong. And
I don't think I understood it. That's probably why I didn't bring it up.
it was all about fat kind of gathering around our midsection, crowding up our organs.
Hmm.
And
What's that, Marisa? What'd you say, Marisa? Oh, what happened? Oh,
I don't know.
Or internet.
oh.
Lost her, it looks like.
I don't know what just happened there. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry. I thought Marisa was adding.
No, I didn't have anything major to say there. I was just trying to draw us back into the chapter because I was getting off on big tangents. What's one thing for you coaches on the line that you're going to take from this chapter and talk with your clients about this week?
Well, next week after this Thanksgiving week, we're shutting it down for Thanksgiving week. Since I've read this ahead of time, I've been preaching this for months because of this. That's why I wanted everybody to read it. I want everybody to skip ahead to 2.7 because I thought it was so enlightening stuff.
Yeah, tell us some of your stuff because you've been so excited about 2.7 all along. Let's hear some more of what Andrew has to say.
Some of the key elements I plot is, getting to bed on time because of the post-absorptive state and getting into fasting and, not staying up too late. When's your last fueling going to be? Things like that. Or when's your last meal? Because you give yourself some time to get into fasting when you go to sleep. And then the feeling full things, I bring that out a lot when clients are talking about that. I'll bring it up, talking about the water. Are you really hungry? Even though that's been a reoccurring theme in this book, talking about what's real hunger and things like that. But yeah, leveraging the protein. Like I said, I spoke with a client who's I think he's well over 400 pounds, and he's saying sometimes I feel like I need a little bit extra. I go, well, then go for the little bit of protein because doctor says it's going to fill you up more. If that's the route we're going to go, well, baby steps and new habits, right? It might not be 100% 5-1 as we get started. Not everybody can do it. We're doing a lot of bad habits. So I'll take what I can get, right? So if you got to add a little bit of that, but whatever, as long as it's a protein, it's still going to serve you. And, maybe it won't take you out of fat burn. I don't know. But if it makes you feel full, if we're trying to satisfy that, and then those conversations will also go into, like we shared earlier, like I told you I had to go on walks. Like some folks don't have a habit of getting out of the house very much for whatever reason. Well, hey, when you're getting that craving, if you have the ability, get out, go walk, go get out of there, get your mind off of it. Listen to a book like I did. I listened to so many books on those little walks that I would go on. And so I was kind of feeding my mind. But those are some of the big takeaways that I had with this. And having that knowledge. And again, it goes, share it right away because otherwise I'll forget. But yeah, who else?
I think I'm going to talk. One client specifically is really about sleep because it's something that he's like always really struggled with. And I mean, he's read about the sleep, but really the effect that our body is going into a gentle fat burn when we're sleeping, and making sure that he is eating that fueling, you know, within 30 minutes of waking up. Because that is also another struggle for some reason. I can't really understand why it's such a struggle because it's so easy just to grab. You don't even have to really think about it. But that's one thing I'm really gonna talk to him about is like, you've got to be getting more than 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and it needs to be good sleep. Like, it's not in your chair, it's in bed with your sleep machine, you know, like, especially for people who do have sleep apnea and already struggle with getting good sleep. The effects on the body that he talks about is huge, and also the mental state, you know.
And if I could just add to that, as you're telling him, there might be something that's keeping him from, it might be the caffeine, it might be a television in the room, it might be his phone because he's playing games really late. Like, these are all the things that I think we don't even realize unconsciously that are happening that are actually keeping us awake. I know it affects me. I know it affects some of our clients. So definitely use that as find out what's keeping him awake or not.
Yeah.
That could be helpful.
I think for me, this chapter is helpful when I talk to folks about maintenance too, because I think the power of eating protein during maintenance is really important, because it's easy to be like, okay, I'm on maintenance now. I'm going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and my snacks can be whatever. But if those snacks don't have some nutritional value or some protein, they may go on throughout the day feeling hungry. So if you're going to have, this favorite food that you really want, make sure you pair it with protein so that you still feel satisfied after you eat that thing, whatever that thing is.
I learned that today, yesterday from you. Thank you, Cindy. From when we talked, but that's true, and it makes so much sense, right? But like, even me, I didn't think of that. I was thinking like, oh, well, I'm just going to have my nice little snack. I'm not going to have a bar or have protein add to it, because then that's extra calories and I don't really need it. Right? So we kind of, instead of using the tools that we have to really educate ourselves, we think that we know what we're doing when it's not really what we should be doing.
I think for me, I'm going to go right back to the beginning of the core principles and just talk about 1, 2, and 3. Why is it that we're doing what we're doing? We're learning the portion control. We're learning the 3-hour fuelings, and we're learning the fueling percentages. Why the fundamental base of it all, and having them maybe even go to this page with me once they get the book. Okay, day 1, we're going to go over this part. I know, all of this food stuff is crazy, but I really want you to understand the beginning of it, at the beginning of it, why we're doing what we're doing. And these 3 components, I think, just nail it right on the head, and understanding that part.
Anyone else? No? All right. Well, I didn't know we were going to go straight to 8 today. That's awesome. A lot of great conversation, a lot of great value. So hopefully whoever's watching this book club gets into 2.7 and loves it more than I do, because it's my favorite. But we will connect again 2 weeks from today for 2.8. It'll be after Thanksgiving, so it'll be a 2-week gap for this one. And yeah, thank you guys all for jumping on here. Like I said, a lot of value, a lot of great conversation. And yeah, thank you guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, Andrew.